So I couldn't write. It goes right back because I started off my love at school and after school was drawing. And I was not good at schoolwork. Well, I wasn't interested, so I wasn't very good at school. I could never write. I was a hopeless writer at school. Never thought that I'd ever be a writer. And so, 20 books, I've written 20 books, novels now. And I'm very, very surprised at that because I failed year 12 English, failed year 12, had to repeat it again in order to go to RMIT and do graphic design because I wanted to be an artist. And so this whole thing, it was like it came to me. It wasn't like it was many authors, they want to be writers from the time they're young. But I didn't have that aspiration because I didn't think that I had that talent or that ability in me. And it just came to me from a dream. And it's, like a real dream. I had a dream one night. The dream was so strange that I wrote it down. My passion for writing came about when my children were in primary school. And before that, I had never thought that I could write. And so one night I had a dream, and it was a very, very unusual dream. Very occasionally one has these dreams that you don't know where they came from. And when I have these dreams, I write them down. And so I wrote the dream down the next day because I knew it was an important dream, something my subconscious perhaps was telling me. And it turned, by the end of the day, it changed into a short story. And I was just I was just gobsmacked because I'd never written before. I'd written bad, angst-ridden poetry when I got dumped by a boyfriend in year 9. But apart from that, I'd never written anything. I was so bad at writing. And so I was really surprised. I didn't know what to do with it, so I just put it in a drawer. And because I wanted to pursue picture book writing and illustrating, I went and did a subject at TAFE, and part of that subject was to write a novel, a children's novel. And I thought, I can't write. I'm hopeless. I can't write novels. So I've got what I wanted in the first semester about how to present a picture book to the publisher, etc., etc. So as I was driving home, because this was going to be the next semester that there was going to be writing a novel, and I was driving home and I thought, why don't I just accept that challenge? Because if you don't, then it just passes you by and you never get anywhere. You never get better. And I just went with it, and all the other students were all, they all belonged to the writers and editors course, but here's me just to, ring in. And by the end of the year, I had this whole novel, and my teacher said, this is good enough to be published. And she wouldn't say that normally. So that was my very first novel. So that goes back to when I was a child, because I think books that one reads when one's a child, when you're children, they, you always remember them. They're very memorable. And for me, Enid Blyton, the Magic Faraway Tree books, I loved them, and I loved The Secret Seven and The Famous Five, and Hazel Edwards. Hazel Edwards, some of you who are listening out there might know. She wrote, her famous book is There's a Hippopotamus on My Roof Eating Cake. So I guess my books are sort of like that, in that The Magic Faraway Tree is what I term as magical realism, set in the real world, but there's magic going on in the tree and up on top of the tree. And then the Secret Seven books, I love the adventure in them, and they belong to a gang, and I belong to a gang, and and all that sort of thing. So I definitely was influenced by that. I'm also influenced by inspired by my Chinese background. When I was young, I hated being Chinese. I wanted to be my greatest wish back then was to be white, like all my friends. But now I'm very influenced by my Chinese background, even though I'm not, I don't know Chinese culture as well as if I was born there. But I do draw a lot of inspiration from that, and especially from Taoism, which is a philosophy which Chinese culture is based on. So it weaves its way throughout my work in a very subtle way. Absolutely. It's just so wonderful. And I think Australia was waiting for this to happen, and especially because my field is children's writing, and I think it's so important for children to see writers of color or writers of a different background, because that's where empathy and tolerance and all that starts. And, I experienced a lot of racial prejudice when I was younger. There is still lots of racial prejudice in Australia. But with more and more people writing who are, as you say, of different ethnicities or of different backgrounds, the better. The better for Australia, because, we can only, we're a country of incredible migration. And it's just, we haven't reached it yet. We haven't reached that perfect balance yet, because there is still so much racial prejudice here. I write, if I didn't have a background where I was in a minority group, and I didn't feel like an outsider like I used to, I would not be writing. So on one hand, I thank all the people who yelled racial slurs at me, and made me feel like an outsider, as though I didn't belong in Australia, even though I'm fourth generation Chinese Australian, going right back to the gold rush. My great-great-grandfather came out in the 1830s. But still, if you look like this, you're not really fully accepted. Well, first of all, I want them to enjoy what they're reading. That's especially for a child. They have to really enjoy what they're reading. And then secondly, because most of my protagonists are of Chinese origin, Chinese background, or part Chinese, then I want the reader to, if they can see the world through the eyes of somebody who is of a different ethnicity, of a different culture, or a different background to their own, to step inside that main character's shoes, because that's what I lacked when I was a child. I had to read Enid Blyton, very English books. I had there were no books with any people of colour in them. And if there were, they were always the brunt of, some joke. They were always, so they were never the main character for sure. And so I'd like children and young readers to be able to step inside my shoes or the shoes of my character and see the world through that. And reading is the most amazing thing, because that's what reading can do. It's more than drama and theatre or pictures. Reading is, you can be right inside that character. I think editing your work over and over and over again is definitely, for me, what I have to do until it's the best I can possibly make it for that time. Also, to read your work out loud. I think that's important, to hear your words said back to you, and also to reach into your heart and try and put your emotions on the page, because then it's genuine. I really like to try and put a gem. It might not be a gem in anybody else's eyes, but a gem in my eyes on each page. That's what happens towards the end of the process of editing a book. No, I've done so many edits. I've gone through it so many times, and I know that it's not the end of the road, because the editor it'll come back with a whole structural edit. And that's when the nightmare begins, and I'm tearing my hair out thinking, I can't write, I'm going to give up. There's always this self-doubt when you're an author. And no matter how many, even if you're Australian Children's Laureate, or you've written 21 books like I have, or you're at the shortlisted, you always go, I can't write. There's always that stage in the middle of a book where I'm saying, I'm pretty hopeless at this. This is so frustrating. I can't. I'm at a frustrating position at the moment. I don't know what my story's about, the book I'm writing at the moment. Yeah. So, it's a highs and lows in this industry. Yeah. That's the thing. I was so surprised when the Garden Empress Cassia, because it was taken from the dream, and of course many 6 rejections, and that's right. What is important, because of all the rejections, none of the other people connected with my story. All you need is one person to connect with your story. And there was Julie Watts at Penguin, she connected with it, whereas the other publishers couldn't. And so that's all you need. It's just like when you read a book and you go, I love this book, and you give it to your friend to read and they go, it's just so. It's very personal. Whether it touches them or not is a different matter. So, yeah. And I started off with writing a short story in a magazine, and that was like, wow, I published something. So any tiny little thing like that is it helps you gain trust and with yourself, that you can at least tiny steps. I mean, some people just write their novel and it's published straight away. That's very rare. If I'm going to illustrate a picture book, it's going to take me full-time 1 whole year. If I'm going to write a novel, it's going to take me full-time 2 years. So what do I pick? This is the dilemma. I need 2 of me, an illustrator me and a writer me. Absolutely. And then I can change the text as well. Yeah, I definitely, it's an interplay of both. Because with my latest novel, Zadie Ma and the Dog Who Chased the Moon, it's the first time I've ever done a graphic novel. So there's 2 graphic novel sections in it. And the graphic novel section is taken from the point of view of the dog. So which is a really lovely way, it's a really good way to tell the dog story, or show the dog story, because it's all in illustrated form. And then the narrative is from the girl, Zadie's point of view. And so that interplay was very interesting to sort of meld that all together, yeah. Recently I got an email, a beautiful email that actually brought tears to my eyes. And she said that, so I would tell my teenage self to not be ashamed of what you look like, don't be ashamed of your culture, and know that one day, with all the failures, like failing year 12 and failing a year in graphic design and so many failures that I had when I was younger, that you're going to come through all that, and that those failures are going to make you stronger. And also that all that, and I mentioned this before, all the things that I had to go through with racial prejudice and being on the outside, it's made me a writer. Otherwise I wouldn't be a writer. There would be nothing I'd want to write about, because I care about what I say and, what I put down on paper. Be persistent. I think that's, because you think that, you send your work out and it doesn't get accepted and you get all these rejections. I had 6, 7 rejections for my first book. And you just have to keep persevering, and you have to I think that you have to swallow your pride, and because you do get these knockbacks, but also when you get a book accepted and you get an editor, know that your editor is on your side. And I love that part of the process where your editor is helping you. Yeah, just have faith in yourself, hoping that it'll happen. It's a very hard industry. That I'm not in your normal demographic of somebody writing to you, because I'm 16 years old. But when I was at school, my teacher librarian recommended your books to me. So she mentioned like 5 books, and she said because she's a Chinese Australian who was having a great lot of difficulty. I mean, there's a lot of prejudice still, and so when she was at primary school, she was having a lot of difficulty. And she said, I just want to write to you to tell you how much your books helped in accepting who I am and becoming proud of who I am. So that was really such a beautiful, I treasure that email. And I know that other people adults have read my story, and they might not be Chinese Australian, they might be Italian Australian or Greek Australian, but they still identify with being other. And so they see that as, they embrace that as part of their story as well. So if you share, this is what I'd say to authors, if you share your story, people will take that on board, and they will bring, because reading is that, you bring yourself into the story just as much as the author has written it. You bring your own experiences to the story, and that's why it can be such an incredible, life-changing experience, reading a book and writing it, of course. Yeah. I'm an octopus. I get ideas from everywhere, all over the place. I mean, people say, kids say, where do you get your ideas from? Well, everywhere. They're there. And the imagination is the thing that I tell the kids is our most treasured possession. If we didn't have an imagination, we wouldn't have lights, cameras, action.